Hello, this is Steve Thomas. Welcome to the program, and we're going to cook again. You know, we're supposed to stay inside, don't go out to restaurants, and and only go out if you have to. Everyone's staying home because of the virus. So what I'm going to do, well, I had this idea a couple of weeks ago before all this came down the pipe. I'm going to show you how to make, you like Reuben sandwiches? I'm going to show you how to make a Reuben casserole right now on this episode of the Steve Thomas Show. You know, I was doing some research on how the Reuben sandwich started. And I know I make stuff up, but I'm not making this up, okay? They don't really know. They got a few ideas, they have a few stories, all right? But they really don't know. So since they don't, I'll just make my own up like I usually do. First, I need to make some breadcrumbs out of rye bread. So you take some rye bread, put it on a baking dish here. Heat the oven up to about 300 degrees. Pop that puppy in. Let that bread dry out that way. That'll make the breadcrumbs for the very top of the Reuben casserole. Alright, so after you put the bread in the oven on a cookie sheet for about 5 or 10 minutes on each side, kind of you let it get dried out. I'm putting these in a bowl, see? Because I'm going to let them get a little more dried out. You could take them out of the package, let them set overnight for like at least a day to make breadcrumbs. But I don't have time for all that. And I've got about 10 slices in here because I'm making a double batch. So you'll need like 5 slices of rye bread dried out to make the breadcrumbs for the casserole. It all started with a guy named Reuben who had a delicatessen or a restaurant in Hollywood, California in 1914. Charlie Chaplin came in one day. He was really hungry but didn't want a regular sandwich. He said, "Reuben, make me something weird. Make me something completely different." So let's get started. The first thing you're going to need is some rye bread, and I mean some pretty good rye bread, something with some substance to it. And in this case, I chose what they call hearty rye bread. Hearty sounded good to me. Take yourself a casserole dish. I use the Corningware from 1975 because I'm crazy. And spray it inside with some cooking oil spray kind of stuff that you're going to use because you're going to put it in the oven and you don't want it to stick. So here's what Reuben had. What he had handy was rye bread, corned beef, sauerkraut, Swiss cheese, and Thousand Island dressing. Well, actually it was Russian. Later on they changed it to Thousand Island just to make it fun. Chunk up some rye bread, put it in the bottom. Doesn't have to be anything too fancy. Don't want to make them too big though, because then it might be harder to get out in small pieces. So that's what we're going to do. Cover it up fairly decently. Yeah, probably only take about 3 slices or so. To make the breadcrumbs, of course, it takes a lot more slices because it just condenses down. The meat is next. If you're a vegetarian, you're probably not going to like this, but if you're not a vegetarian, you're going to love it. What I got here is good old-fashioned pastrami from the deli. I got mine in Schnucks. Nice layer of pastrami meat. You also want to kind of make that small pieces. Again, this is a casserole. It's not a sandwich. There you go. There are several variations of the story, but that's kind of actually how it really did start. And it really was an actress who supposedly one of the stories that came into a delicatessen restaurant kind of place, was really hungry, and the guy was just messing with her, but she didn't have any money. So he made this big sandwich with just whatever he had in front of him that was close by. It caught on, no kidding, and the Reuben was born. Then after that, well, there's different variations of this, as everyone knows. This is what I do next. I prefer adding a little bit of honey and mustard on top of that sauerkraut. You don't have to put it in there if you don't want to. Then again, you don't have to do anything you don't want to. You can probably guess what comes next. More bread. Same as the first time. Pinch off some bread, put it on there. Kind of like pretend like you're feeding the ducks. You're not supposed to feed the ducks. Stop feeding the ducks. Feeding the ducks causes them to get sick. Don't feed the ducks. Let the damn ducks go hungry. So I'm not going to put a whole heck of a lot of bread on here. Maybe about a couple of slices. Because, you know, we already got the bread on the bottom. And you don't want the whole thing to just be bread, now do you? That's the trick. Here we go. Alright, almost done. You ready for this? I'm not. And then, more meat. This, folks, is top round pastrami from Boar's Head. Yeah, well, that's the name of the company. And what is pastrami, you ask? Well, I'll tell you. Pastrami is beef with spices, and it's corn. A lot like corned beef, except it's not. It's got other spices in it, but tastes a lot like corned beef because it is corned beef. That's why. There we go. Yeah, and you guessed it. More Swiss cheese. You can use the shredded Swiss cheese if you want, and I almost got that. Yep, I almost got that at the store, but it was like 3 times as expensive. And you know what? Cheese melts, regardless. So the slices will work just fine. Hey, this cheese has holes in it. What the heck's going on here? Alright, Thousand Island. One of these. And then one of these. You want to have plenty. There are some people that don't like Reuben sandwiches for one reason or another. One of my buddies, Steve Shelberg, actually doesn't like sauerkraut, so that's out. And you can't make a Reuben without sauerkraut, now can you? No, you can't. And we're going to top it with breadcrumbs. Remember me talking about how I made the breadcrumbs in the oven? Well, now we're going to use them. It's just bread that's stale. That's all breadcrumbs are. Stale bread. Nothing wrong with that. It's dried out. It's not really bad or anything. Nothing wrong with it at all. So we're going to make tiny chunks of that to cover the top of it. And I'm making 2 batches, like I said, so I probably got way more than I actually really need. But again, I'd rather have too much than not enough. So after we bake breadcrumbs, we're going to put it on top, and I'll show you how that looks. Alright, as it turns out, I got a lot more breadcrumbs than I actually really needed. I wasn't sure. You know, once you put it in make small little pieces out of it like this, it's kind of hard to tell how far it's going to go. Turns out, all I need for 1 casserole is about 3 slices of rye bread. That's, I think that's all I ended up needing here. See, and that's plenty to cover the top of the lovely casserole. And did I mention you're supposed to preheat the oven to 350 degrees? Yeah, I probably said something like that. If I didn't, well, you know, you should definitely do that. Voila. And in the oven it goes, 350 degrees, little rack, for about 35 minutes to 40 minutes. Yep, let's see what happens. All right, here we go. I always say that. Yeah, well, I cranked the temperature up to 350 degrees, no, 400 degrees, and left it in a little longer than they said I should, because I do that sort of thing. All right, been in the oven for 40 minutes, and now we're going to put some butter on top of the breadcrumbs. I know, I dried them out, and now I'm putting butter on them, but it's okay. You know why? Because it just doesn't look right to me, and I'm going to boil it. Hang on. And the end result. And you know, you're supposed to wait a while before you cut them. Before you cut anything, you're supposed to wait a while, especially in deficit. That's what I'm told. So that's how you make a casserole, a Reuben casserole. So, until next time, folks, this is Steve Thomas saying, grab the rye by the throat and pastrami it. No, grab the pastrami by the throat and rye it. How about don't rye it? Let's not rye it at all. Let's talk about rye bread. Grab the rye bread by the throat and shake it. This is Steve Thomas. Goodbye.
Take what's yours, I'll take what's mine and save the rest for someone else.